Oh shoot, I forgot to turn it on. Oh my.
You guys are bad for after meetings.
Oh yeah.
Chatting before I can get up and turn it off.
Kathy's holidays and Kato. Oh, you guys sometimes don't realize you're still on live session. Oh no, we know. We just do that on purpose. I tell you. Yeah.
Are we live? Oh.
We're live.
We're ready to commence? Turned on?
So we left discussing the generator and possible transfer to reserves. I was talking to Shelley at lunch, and she indicates that she has an idea that the pool is going to be at least 45. So whether council wants to wait and take the balance of that out of reserves once the final figure is known, because we're probably going to have to come back to council anyway for additional funds. We could leave the heater where it is and come back once that number is known for the balance. Under the procurement policy, this would be considered an emergency, and as the treasurer, I have the authority to authorize those expenditures, which is exactly what's happened. And it will come from reserves, but we would let you know that.
Similar to what happened with the snowplow.
Correct. So we're at a... Sorry? Go ahead.
Or just as a budgeting point, would we be able to just put that at, call it 50,000 for the pool and move forward from that?
You could. You may not need the 50,000.
Again, if we didn't need it, wouldn't it just go back into reserves? Or
it would go into reserves, but again, you're taxing ratepayers for something that you don't know at this time.
okay.
Yeah. If it comes in more than that, I would still have to come back to council. So.
I was just thinking for numbers wise.
Yeah, we had budgeted for this anyway. We knew we needed to do the heater. The additional repairs were totally unexpected, quite frankly. So I'm sitting at a 0.97% increase. If you look at the tax calculation, we're going from keep needing to reduce that. The increase is not much in the rate. We're going from 7.17 here, which was last year's, to 7.25. So I guess on a $50,000 house, it's about $8. So not significant. So now we're back at the capital and discussing what we want to do with the generator and or any other capital projects that you want to consider. Add, remove, increase, discuss.
Okay, myself, I'm still hung up on the generator. I just can't see us paying $110,000 for something that may have been used twice in the last 8 years, per se.
It would be used more than that, Councillor Moff.
Well,
those were specific declared emergency at the same time, but every day of the week, if there's a power outage, we're supposed to be running this place and running the community. That will impact that.
I see, but not for a significant amount of time is what I'm thinking, that the power's ever out for that long. And over the years, I found it's been getting better, other than last year, of course. That one incident. That's my opinion.
I tend to agree with Councillor Moff. I'm a little hung up on that.
I understand where you guys are coming from with the generator and how it would be beneficial, but at the same time too, it seems like a big expense for, again, right, it's just speculation, right? We could have a really bad year and have a lot of power outage, or we could have a really good year and have none. It's you're kind of at the nature of Mother Nature in a sense.
But you said the lifespan of this would be approximately 25 years?
Yes.
So for that expense, over the life of 25 years, I think, to myself, I think that's worth the money, because if we have one major event or 6 or a whole bunch of minor events, this is our command center when there is anything going on. Like a couple of years ago when there was that big fire out at the corner, and there was fires the other way, we had, we need that kind of thing going on here. So I think we need to consider not just major events, but the small ones that a lot of people don't tend to really know about until after the fact. But that is where something like this comes into play and could save us. And they have to be able to run this building. The one that runs the fire hall cannot do what they need it to do in this building, where they need power, they need their servers, they need the internet, they need the phone lines, they need those kinds of things. And the one from the fire hall cannot do that. It can, for emergency services, it can do what it has to do there, absolutely. But that's the extent of what they can do. Even if they upgrade it, that's still only what it can do. And in removing the other expense and adding it, we could use that there in place of. So that's basically half the cost. So it offsets, in one aspect, to look at it, offsets the cost of it. If we wait and do it over 2 years, and if we don't get the money, or we get way less money from the Ontario government next year, then we can't buy it at all.
Mr. Cranny, do you have any idea of a guesstimate of how many times we have lost power over the last year? Is there any?
I know there's been several instances where I've sent staff home.
Yeah, okay.
Because there's been no power.
Several,
Without
maybe
power,
10,
we
12,
can't function.
5, 6.
Oh, no.
Dozen, maybe?
Yeah, well, 5 maybe in the last year.
Major ones that have been
Yeah.
a few
Where you
hours.
actually had to ask people to go home because it was too cold or too hot or whatever.
Well, the building basically shuts down. Hydro,
Yeah.
the building's basically shut
Like
down.
without our computers, we can't serve the public.
With all that being said, would we be able to have something possibly in place where you had a control room? So we had a smaller generator.
We have that right now, basically. We run the lights in this half of the room,
Yeah.
and that's it.
But would we be able to do something where we were able to run the servers so that you could have the internet?
Okay, so now we're getting into everything on the other side. We're going to spend, $20,000, $25,000. When I start to look at that, that doesn't take care of the issues in the fire hall, the doors, and all those issues. We still do a manual system there. This would let us have the whole building fully backed up, fully automatic, ready to go. We show up, the doors are openable, the stuff is ready to go.
And the 0.9 that you're talking about now includes leaving this 110,000 in here, right?
Correct.
You feel it would be non-feasible to piggyback power from one of our existing generators?
Well, I haven't explored that, but we don't own the pole lines from there to there, so I'd have to get involved with hydro, get overlashing permission, those kind of things,
From your past experience, is that generally not something that hydro would approve? Or
Well, there'd be an annual fee.
Yeah.
We would have to pay an annual fee to have it there. I'm not sure. I've never explored that avenue. And then I don't know what's kind of the load of this building versus the surplus capacity, if there is any,
Oh, definitely.
at the
lots of-
generator plant at the water pump house. Because I got to think that they size that right for what's going on there.
Yeah.
I get the last point over having a much smaller system to make sure the server can be accessed and save us the big costs, that we could still access the server on a much smaller basis. I get that. I would agree something along those lines.
I mean, we've been caught now a few times in situations where we weren't able to get information in that. So, like Mark mentioned earlier, we have the information now on a portable device that if you needed it, it was available, right?
If it's that incident, if it's something else, we haven't got our whole system backed up on anything that's usable or transferable to anything else. Boil water is our most common emergency at this point, so we've now got those documents available. But like the photocopier went down, so we couldn't get the notices out. The power was also in marathons, so we couldn't. And I get those are unique situations or one-on-one, but even the radio station was down because Marathon was out the same day. So we had no way to get the notices out to the public. We couldn't post on Facebook because the internet was down. We couldn't post on, we were just stuck in that particular instance. Mr. Cranny, I have a question for you though. So without the backup generator, would there be heat in this building here?
No.
So you might have access to your server somehow, but we wouldn't have access to, it would be too cold in here to work.
It's not just.
If it's a winter event.
It's lights, heat, it's everything, the whole
Yeah.
system. Like that's, we're looking at backing up everything so the place is operational all the time.
In the daytime, you can work in the offices on the perimeter, but that's it. The inside is too dark to work, and down here is even worse because we at least have skylights and the lights that come this way to the top of the building. But we do not have that. It's, if you were to come in here in the evening, it's pretty black on the main floor. Even through the day, it's pretty dark down
I've been
there.
in here lots of
Yeah.
evenings and stuff.
So can we go around the table, Mr. Mayor?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very necessary process. And I understand it's a large amount of money, but that's what a system like that will cost. And if we have to send everybody home every time there's an outlet, an outage, I think in the long run it's costing us money.
We generally wait a bit of time just to see if it's a blip, but if it's anything longer than a blip, then it's generally too dark for staff to work, so we do something more.
I think it's worth the investment. And if we wait a year or 2 years or even 3 years, the cost will be different. The cost could be exponentially more. It could be 150, it could be 200, we don't know. Because these kinds of things, like everything, inflation and all that sort of thing. And if we don't get all the funding, or we get a significant cut to our funding, that has an impact on it as well. So I'm in favor of spending the money right now.
I myself, I would say I am not in favor. Like this building's been here for 20, 25 years without it as of now. I would just like to see that money maybe put towards beautification or upgrades on the infrastructure over this item. I just think that's a little bit too much money for a single item at this time.
Yeah, I have reservations over it as well at this point. I would be more in favor of a mini power backup system for the amount of times we need it. I don't think it's worthy of the expense.
It's a great idea. I understand where everybody's coming from with the backup generator. I just don't know if we've explored all of our avenues to see that this is the best idea for us to take. Or the best path, just to get another generator, because then you have other factors that will come into place as, generators running. We have generators that run in town now that upset residential people. So, now you have another generator running uptown. Possibly could have noise complaints or things along those lines. I know heat is a thing you guys keep talking about with heat and heating the buildings. Yeah, it would be great to have heat all the time.
That's something we can look.
So, Councillor Moffat, you're in disagreement with generator, period?
I'm in disagreement with $110,000 going out for that. If it was over 2-3 years, then maybe I'd consider it. But if not, if it's a one-time deal, I'm going to have to say no.
And Councillor Rolla, you're not in favor of it at all, and the way it's presented?
I'm in favor of looking at other options, that in the event of an emergency, we can have a mini system in here that can be looked at. Just,
Okay, so this time we don't have that support, we don't have that information. so
yes,
we
I
could-
understand,
Okay, no, I'm trying to make it clear for me.
yeah.
And Councillor Scalpinello, you're not in favor of a generator at all either.
It's not that I'm not in favor of it. I do believe that it could potentially be very beneficial. I just fear that maybe we didn't explore all of our options. As technology gets better and better all the time, there might be something else that could possibly be put into the township and maybe might be a better option. And again, like Jim said, 110,000 is fairly steep for a backup system.
Mr. Cranny, one of the questions that was asked at lunchtime was, are you aware of other municipalities who do this, who have a backup generator to maintain their control centers?
Sure, there's all kinds of them. There used to be a system called JEP where we could get money for emergency management type stuff. That system doesn't exist anymore, but a lot of people have, especially their fire hall fully backed up and things like that, and their emergency control group as well, situation backed up. It's just that things have evolved so much over the years where we rely on the computers, the internet, the phone systems, all those things to do this work today. So when we look at trying to back all that stuff up, and then we say we have our building that's without heat and without lights and those occurrences. So if we did the first part of what I talked about for $60,000, and I sit back and I look and say, okay, 100,000 will give us 100% of the building fully automated, back up. It sounds like a sound investment when I put it over 25 years, and I say $4,000 a year to ensure full place is running for any emergency or any power outage. We have use of the full facility. I think it's sound investment. We have an obligation to the community when there is an emergency or a prolonged power outage or any of these things to be able to perform and manage that situation for them. Backup power at the hospital, backup power at the ambulance base, backup power at the OBP station. Those things are all in place. This facility does not have that. And we have an obligation during those events to manage and run those events as the community.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I just don't think it's for me thing to do at this time.
Excuse me, are we suggesting that if this line item comes off, that money that was planned for that would go into reserve?
I've heard beautification, but we don't have any plans for that, so that would sort of be redundant, but it could certainly be put into paving. I've heard a couple of things. So right now, it would be defeated that this would be pulled from the
Yes,
agenda
that's
the
what
way the conversation is today. So 2 yeses, 2 nos, and 1 spread it over 2 years. So that's not a yes to leave it in, it's a yes to modify it. We don't have the information to give you any further information today, certainly. If council wanted to come back for this one agenda item, you could. We'd have to schedule another meeting, and we would have to have it in the next week if we were going to still meet our targeted date of the 30th for the open house.
But if it was put in reserves and everybody was satisfied later that we did the proper work and we're happy that this should be moved forward, then we could take it out of reserves at that time, right?
So put it in reserves pending council approval of, so you're still raising the money this year.
I'd sooner have it taken off the tax.
But if you take it off, then I think that 1% tax increase is very reasonable. We've got to be very careful that we don't. The problem with having no tax increase at all in 1 year and do it in 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden you're going to have to increase it 5 to 10%, and that's the year that you're going to have a real rough time. So while nobody likes to have any tax increase, having a 1 to 2% tax increase on a yearly basis is a lot easier on people's pocketbooks than having 10 in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. I think we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but like Margaret suggested, or so did I, that if we took that $100,000 and put it towards the roads repaving.
But it's still the tax.
That's correct. We'd still stay at our 1%, but then the money would be reallocated to something that would go towards the beautification of the town and for more of the townspeople around town. I realize this in an emergency is also for the townspeople, but to me, the money would be better spent on paving the roads.
So basically what I'm hearing is that some councillors are saying that they don't think that this project is worthwhile or necessary. Is that what
I believe
I'm hearing?
it's worthwhile. I believe it is potentially necessary, pending the situations that arise. I just think that possibly there could be other options for us to explore.
That was my point.
That's all I'm suggesting. I'm not saying yes and I'm not saying no.
So what we can do is we can transfer it to reserves, identify it as the backup generator pending a further report. At that point, council can either approve it or not approve it and determine what to do with the balance of the funds. So it would be earmarked for the generator in 2019 pending council final approval. So the money will be earmarked. Did I say that clear enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. So I would just be removing it from here, moving it to the reserve spreadsheet. Everything would still remain status quo. We're still funding a generator pending final approval from council based on a report from Mr. Cranham.
And the scope of that report would be to look at overlashing? Is that what the direction is?
Go ahead.
Just to see potential other options out there, to see if the generator is the only option that is suitable for this type of application, or if possibly piggybacking off of another power source and or looking at alternative sources of energy as opposed to a diesel generator, maybe a propane generator.
I can tell you that a propane generator is going to be roughly the same price.
Okay.
We haven't excluded that option of putting it on propane.
Okay.
One of the things that we're looking at is possibly putting it on propane, and the only reason we would do that is that would allow it to tie us into our big fuel tank that we have for the building already.
Mm-hmm.
So the fuel source, to me, is really irrelevant right now for council. We'll make that decision. We'll explore that option for you. I would not reduce the budget saying I can go to propane tomorrow and the budget's going to be down, because I can't guarantee that. And as we get into working with this propane line issue and stuff we have to deal with, we would look at all that together.
Okay.
And so we have considered propane, and there is, we have looked at companies that make them big enough to power the system that do run on propane.
Doesn't our one of our cell phone providers run their system on batteries, a backup system?
Yeah, we're talking a little system compared to what we're talking about here, though. As I mentioned earlier, this building has three-phase power, and to run the motors and the fans and the pumps and stuff, especially for the heating system, it's those are the potential problems, So
with the three.
And you need to have we put this in, we have to put a slab down, concrete slab down. We have to put a transfer switch, automatic transfer switch in to switch the power, from hydro line to generator and switch back as power comes off and on. You have to install one of those as well. That's all included in this estimate.
So is that solution agreeable to all the council?
They come back with the report?
We would transfer that from the capital to the transfer to reserves. Either way, it's just presentation. It's not going to get spent until council gives the final nod on this one. So I'll transfer it over to reserves, but it won't change the tax rate. It'll be exactly the way that it is. I'll change the presentation. So is there any other items that council wish to discuss on capital? So official plans happening either way. Skate parks approved. Door system, council's already agreed to that. LUP, that's already on the way. Asset management, mandatory. Propane tanks, we have a resolution prepared for pre-approval of that one. Backup generator will get moved. PPE got reduced. Snow blower's done. Steamer unit, we've discussed. Sand truck, we've agreed to. Vacuum truck, have we agreed to the vacuum truck? Okay. This is a capital project that's going to happen. This is coming out of OSIFA money that's already been approved by OSIFA. Boiler replacement complete. Roof replacement, Shelley's going to look into that. Kitchen upgrades in the fall, pre-approval for this, and pool heater, $30,000.
The roof replacement, that's on the rec center,
Correct.
the big dome.
No, it's the flat roof, I believe,
Yeah.
library and that area there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's a leak that comes through the building at that point.
Okay.
So we were waiting on engineering.
Is
for that.
engineering, I don't think engineering's done, eh?
Yeah, it should have to follow up.
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
think you're going to find, I think you're going to find that you may have an estimate from a roofing contractor, you actually don't have engineering done.
Yeah,
So without engineering done,
we wouldn't do it.
you're not going to get done this summer,
Yeah, yeah.
this construction season.
And we were under the understanding from the previous manager that that was already underway, but we're going to have to do some homework to find that study if it has been done. Or requested, because I haven't paid a bill for it. So that leaves you here. Transfer to reserves, did council want to review that again? Just to see if there was anything that you were wishing to discuss? So there's not a lot of other than things that are pre-approved. This is not a resolution of council, but it has been openly accepted by several councils now that we will do this every year. So Scuba, Mr. Cranny already explained that. Did anyone have any concerns about that or the value?
What is the value?
50?
Is there any type of requirement for the fire department to maintain a certain year of?
No, but they're getting 20 years old now,
Yeah.
and I see an increase in maintenance and stuff going on. This is not something that I'm going to act on today. It's just planning,
Yeah.
managing for down the road. I know it's going to happen, and so start putting the money away to have funds for that.
But as far as regulations or rules or anything like that goes,
It has to meet the Z94, the care and use, and then there is the NFPA standard as well for them. But it'll get to the point where they're just not servicing us well, and we'll look at replacement. There's nothing. It's not like a pumper that says you have 25-year life
Well, that's
of
kinda
a
where I was
pumper
going with it,
where it
yeah.
has to go.
So in theory, we could run our SCBA's until they fail, basically.
Until they start giving us
Yeah.
stuff and they start to look at the overall operation of them, like I say, they're 20 years old now.
Yeah.
And we switched. We used to get them maintained every second year. Now we get them maintained every year just because we're finding little things, O-rings failing and stuff inside failing and things like that.
So the other one is landfill post-closure. We have done that every year for many, many years now. This is for the study, putting money aside for a study to determine whether we would replace or rebuild the community center when the time is appropriate, sort of saving for a rainy day for that study.
So for that one in particular, is that a known cost already for the study, or is that just your?
We know the cost would be more than that,
Okay.
so we're setting funds aside until we're ready to do it.
Okay.
Like I say, for us, the determining factor and the timing factor will be whether we're continuing to move on in the NWMO process or if we're out.
Right.
There's, if I could, there's some things about the rec center. One is the age of the asset itself.
Yes.
We're looking at roofs and heating systems, mechanical systems. There's no ventilation in the building today. There's no accessibility. Like from a barrier-free standpoint, the building doesn't meet on any avenue. Mechanicals, energy efficiency, all those things. When you look at the structure, has it served its life? And what is it practical to keep putting millions of dollars in? We're going to spend $3 or $4 million maintaining the asset. What's a new one worth?
Mm-hmm.
To do that review what's the right thing, like, what's the right recreation facility for the community at the time, you know, and as Margaret mentioned, NWMO coming or not coming is a huge thing for the community. So it's recommended that we start to put money away to have a study available rather than keep putting millions of dollar projects on the present facility to say, if we're looking at millions of dollars, what's the facility, what do we really need, and are we better off to move forward and come up to a accessible, modern, efficient facilities?
Has the building been looked at line by line, what is actually wrong?
We
And
started
what-
a binder
Mr. Barnes has a.
Yeah, he
has
started a binder.
somewhere.
on roofs and mechanicals and things like that, and that's not, we've talked about it for years, doing accessibility study on the rec center. We haven't done that because you'd be talking a study of that much or more, just to do an accessibility study. And then would you spend that money trying to put, say, an elevator to go to the weight room? You know what I mean? Like in the facilities, because in today's world, if you built that today, you would have that. So to bring it up to fire and life safety and accessibility standards today, you know, when you look at all those costs, you know, maybe a new facilities. I know of one municipality in the last couple of years that did it a totally different way. They just started putting money aside, and they had an amount, I think it was $4.2 million they had at the time, and they went out to RFP and said, we have $4.2 million to turnkey building operators. What would you give us for this pile of money? And got feedback from them, and they ended up and they built a new rec center that way. So there's different ways to do it, but
And that's where, like, it cost us almost $70,000 to do our strategic plan, and that was a consultative process. This would be the same thing, like we would have community interest group, the public, we would open houses, like you would definitely listen to the public. You need an engineer, you know, what's structural, what's not. But this would be a great value for the NWMO funds, because you can take whatever you've got in there and you can leverage money like crazy with that. You know, you can get grants where you've got your portion already. You don't have to save for your portion. So that's a great example of where, you know, building that and not using it for little things will get you bigger, better down the road. And the only other one that we have here is already previous resolutions of council, putting the current NWMO allocation of 300 into reserves and replenishing the 600 that was already used. So does anybody have any other questions or anything else they'd like to visit? Where we stand right now is there's the REAR, and there's the tax calculation. There's your difference in your rates. So 2018 for residential, 7.17 and 7.2.
So we're looking at roughly 1% increase,
Just under 1%.
just under 1%.
0.1.
Pardon?
7.
9.2.
9.92
you're at right now?
Yeah. 0.92, which is
Point
1%.
Go back to your
It
comparison.
was 0.97.
No, these are the rates. I'm talking
Oh,
about
yes,
the
these are the
actual
rate- yes,
rates.
yes.
Oh, the rate, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very little movement in the rate.
Correct, but percentage-wise, it is less than 1%.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
So do I have the majority of council who's in agreement with this draft budget?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 5. So I will obviously clean up that PowerPoint presentation because I saw, I think, 4 times where I mentioned the OMPF funding, so I will need to clean that up a little bit. Same presentation will be given to the open house. I have a bunch of slides similar to what's on the wall, where the money's from. They'll all be updated in the slide presentation as well. And at the meeting on the 30th, we will approve all of our bylaws, establishing the budget, tax rates, the tax ratios, and we should be on target for getting the budget, the text goes out. So I apologize, council, for the delays, but our staffing situation left us in an unusual circumstance. We actually did start working on this in October, believe it or not. But things happen. So thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, council, for the great deliberations, and thank you very much for the explanations. Hope everything works out good. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that the meeting adjourn at the hour of...
Do you have the one for the regular meeting too? Is this one done?
Oh, right.
For the propane.
Oh, yeah, we need that first. Okay, sorry.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for this one, please. Kathy? A seconder?
Sure. So that we can go ahead with our propane line repairs?
Start getting the contractor schedule to get that work, construction season stuff.
Moving it forward.
Just on your administrative report.
Yeah, but that's
You
not.
have the incorrect date
that's-
there, but you have it correct under that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, correct there.
Okay, moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that council gives pre-budget approval in the amount of $18,500 to install new propane lines at the municipal office and the community center. All in favor? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that the special meeting adjourn at the hour of 1:04. All in favor?